Kevin saw I wrote a post this morning about only about 10% of human beings have self-awareness. And so the first one applies to that one. And the first one is know yourself
Mm,
and know your enemy. Understanding your strengths and weaknesses and study your opponent's strategies and motives. Success comes from preparation and awareness.
wow.
Man,
Wow.
we could just stop right there. Thanks for coming out, guys. Thanks for
Right?
watching. That's the end. That's the end of the episode. Like seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, with that one, that was the essence of why I trained in so many different martial arts and why I get to a high-ish rank in them and then leave because I'm like, okay, now we're getting into the art side of things and I want to be more on the martial side. But I mean, knowing your enemy in a self-defense situation, that's really tough. It's not like fighting, it's not like competition, it's not like you have footage and you get to watch them and see what they're going to do. And hey, he loves leading with
Yeah.
his right jab all the time. Is you actually really don't know your enemy other than environment. Would you agree?
Um, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
On the other hand, a high level of empathy, you can really tune into what a person is thinking and feeling. Remember that the body doesn't lie, and that 93% of communication is nonverbal.
Hmm.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Um, then there's the meta, there's the totality of the circumstance, which will tell you the story in terms of what you can reasonably assume.
Yeah.
And then also a high level of fight IQ. I mean, you can pick up really not even a high level of fight IQ, a moderate level of fight IQ. You can pick up really quickly where your enemy's vulnerabilities are and strengths, and learn how to avoid or exploit them in a flash.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, so I don't mean to be contradictory, but I think
Oh,
when you
yeah.
reach a certain level, then you absolutely that's absolutely true. And
Yeah.
by the way, I just want to add this to all the war stuff. This doesn't just apply to like kinetic fighting, but it also applies to psychological warfare,
Nice. Yeah.
which is a lot of it, and it also applies to business
Yeah.
and other things too. All forms of relationships where that become adversarial,
Mhm.
you can apply all these things in different ways. So I would say the first one is understanding yourself. What are your tendencies? What are your motivations? What are your triggers? What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? If you don't know that,
Yeah.
spend some time on developing yourself.
Yeah.
And that's hard. Like honestly, it's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
To take a look at yourself, to dive deep inside the good. A lot of people won't accept the good things about themselves. And then to accept the good, accept the bad, accept the ugly, accept everything in between. Man, that's really, really a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
But it's so important.
Yeah. I mean, it's changed my life, that's for sure, right? Like I was I had lots of anger issues, post-military, and if not for getting the help I did, I wouldn't have gone on the path I'm currently on. And that's why I started my own dojo called the Gong Fu Academy because it's about mastering yourself. I'll
Yeah.
teach you how to physically do it, but along the journey, you're going to have a lot of mental struggles and a lot of spiritual struggles. And at least I'm
And phys-
you be
and
aware.
physical. And physical. You're just gonna have lots of struggles. It's all a
Yeah,
struggle. But
yeah,
the struggle is what makes you stronger.
yeah,
You have to go through that. I think that enlightened and evolved people all go through a dark night of the soul, where
numerous.
they face that, yeah, they face that dark part of themselves, and um they embrace that, and then once they've embraced it and they know that they're in control of it, it's not in control of them, right?
Yeah, so true.
um it sounds kind of touchy feely, but man, like if you really want to understand how to protect yourself, you need to spend some time on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the ego is our best teacher, but a lot of people look at their ego as a bad thing. I love my ego. right? I used to push it aside. Oh, I can't be.
Obviously.
Yeah. Okay there, mister. I attract 25-year-old girls who keep staring at me.
Okay, Mr.
Ain't got nothing, do you? No, because I'm the good guy. Or I'm
I
just
had
initiative
something.
with the martial
I
arts.
had something good there, but I lost it because I was listening to. Listen, it's not my fault that 25-year-old chicks think I'm hot.
You're right. It's not your fault. It's not your
So
fault.
here's so here's the next one,
Okay.
which this is a good segue from the last one. All warfare is based on deception. So then the question is, are you deceiving yourself about yourself?
Nice.
Then do you know how to deceive your adversary in a way where you're not telegraphing your intent?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? We want to obfuscate, right? That's the whole idea. As Bruce Lee said, be shapeless, be formless.
Mm.
You pour
So
water
true.
into a cup, it becomes the cup.
Yes.
You
Yes.
pour water into a teapot, it becomes the teapot.
Oh,
Water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
how long did it take for you to memorize that, Todd?
I don't know.
He's got
So
a poster in his bedroom, I bet.
appear, yeah, yeah. Appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak.
Mm.
When you are close, appear far away. When you are far away, appear close.
Yeah.
When you are many, appear few. When you are few, appear many. Right? So you're projecting the opposite of actually of what you are or what's happening when it comes time for warfare.
Okay, I'm glad that you put that caveat there when it becomes time for warfare, right?
When
Because
it's
up
time for
until that
warfare.
point, right, is you don't want to be a soft target so that they are going to approach you. You want to be a hard target so that they're
Yeah,
targeting you. But if it becomes too late where war or combat or actual
yeah,
business skills are needed,
yeah.
yeah, okay, sweet.
And also you don't want to be inauthentic. You don't want to project something other than what you are.
Yeah,
Right. When we'll get into those other points too, but when it comes time for war, it's time to be deceptive.
yeah,
Appear weak when you're strong, then mislead your enemy to gain an advantage, and then use the element of surprise to disorient and dominate. Right. That's right. You're taking the initiative and keeping the initiative, keeping them reacting to you instead of you reacting to them.
nice, nice. Love it.
Right. All applies to self-defense in a very big way.
Yeah.
You can see some of our other episodes about that will tie into that.
For sure.
Um, Next one, win without fighting. The greatest victory is defeating the enemy without conflict.
Oh,
Disrupt, disrupt your enemy's plans before the battle begins. This goes down to the 5 stages of violent crime that we did in the past. And
yep.
then you use diplomacy, alliances, and subterfuge to avoid bloodshed. If you don't have to tangle, don't tangle. No
I
matter
mean,
how do, no matter how dominant you can be.
yeah,
This isn't about kicking ass. So this is the conflict avoidance part, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I will say this. There are caveats to this as well, and this in all different forms of relationships in life. There's a time and a place to throw down the gauntlet
Yeah.
and say enough is enough,
Yeah.
not just for yourself, but for others as well. Or if there's somebody in the neighborhood, or in your life who's a fraud,
Yeah.
or there's a rapist in your neighborhood, right? There's a time to confront them to let them know, like Kevin and I have said many times, right? It's good men who have the capacity for aggression who keep the psychopaths in line. So we're not saying that you should be conflict avoidant at all costs, that you should be completely agreeable, but you should know when and how to execute those confrontations. And know that if you do confront your enemy, that you should be prepared to back it up. And I mean, back it up, back it up.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a hard one for people because it's fairly easy to avoid things, right? But you also have to get very good at drawing your own line And the only way to know what your own line is to self-reflect and to be self-aware and be like, listen, like I can take this much, but once you hit that certain point, now I'm going to set a firm boundary and a firm
Yeah.
line.
And know the laws, right? And the use of force continuum, and using the same level of force that comes against you without going beyond that level of force. Once the threat has stopped, you must stop.
Yes.
Once the threat is retreating, you must allow them to retreat as long as they're not going to be harming anybody else. And if you have a reasonable means of retreat, you must retreat.
Yeah.
Those are laws, right? And so there's a reason for those laws, and some of them have those laws have gone too far to the point of diminishing or negative returns when it comes to self-defense. But we still have to be aware of what those laws are. Like Kevin sent me a video of this guy where this woman had road rage and she slapped him and he punched her hard and then picked her up and body slammed her.
Yeah.
He would have been justified to punch her back so she couldn't hurt him anymore. But
Yeah.
to pick her up and body slam her, man, that's excessive force, right?
Yep.
So know yourself, right?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
like
you
why
could
why
tell
and
you,
then why even get out of the car? It's just an angry old lady. Like what no matter who it is, why get out of the car if you like there's no point.
yeah.
So Kevin and I have talked about that a lot in the past, but we need to understand how all of this works. And it's all the art of war stuff, right?
It really is. I mean, I love the idea of conflict avoidance, right? But one thing that I really realized, like for myself to help people, was I used to honk the horn quite a bit, right? And I was just mad. I was like, idiot, bad driver, what are you doing? And then my son comes into the world and I honk. He's like, what are you honking the horn for, Dad? I'm like, oh. I'm like, damn. I'm like, that's true. I don't need to honk the horn. He's like, no, yeah. He's like, are we just honking the horn for fun? I'm like, yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Right. But it was honestly so true. And it's like there's so much you could do to prevent situations from happening, but it always comes down to yourself.
Yeah, it's true,
Always.
man.
Yeah.
It's true. It's what I love so much about training and fighting, especially jujitsu. I don't know, there's something about jujitsu or no gi grappling, sport grappling is like it's mostly you versus you. And
Oh,
eventually who you really are is gonna come out. Like I always say, like how do you know it's inside a sponge is that you squeeze it,
yeah.
you know,
Nice. I love
and
that.
what you project effortlessly under pressure, the overwhelming majority of the time, not all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
but the overwhelming majority of the time, that's the what matters most. Everyone has a bad moment or a bad day. That's not
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is the definition of character,
Yes. Yeah.
right? And so that's what's so great about it. It's why I like training at another gym. And because I don't have any well, I do now, but I actually don't like that I have any level of status there. But I mean, there's still a lot of people at that gym that don't know whatever my status is at that gym.
Yeah.
So if they're talking shit to me, it's great because I got to deal with that,
Yeah.
right? If they're smashing me or whatever, and they're not being cool with it, or that's Todd dealing with Todd.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've got and then also the failures and the pressures that come along with that. It's sort of like the ultimate in self refinement. That's why it's you know personal development through positive resistance, right?
Yeah, it's jujitsu, like I said, and like you said, it's amazing because it forces you to do it, right? And I was gonna ask your opinion on it, but I believe that a lot of people leave jujitsu at blue belt because they opened the door, they started on the journey, they wanted to finish their goal, which is great. I want to get my blue belt in jits, which is hard. It's not an easy task, right? They go through the process, they suffer, they suffer, they suffer, they suffer. They become a pretty decent weapon. Like a blue belt in jiu-jitsu on the ground can do a good job of defending themselves for sure. And then all of a sudden, when I feel like after blue belt, they're like, I don't want to keep going through that. right? I was there because I achieved my goal and I had a financial obligation to, to the dojo. But then they're like, once I got my blue belt, I'm done. And I think they're done because they're done having to self-reflect. They're done having to, like a lot of people say they'll make it to black belt, they'll make it to black belt. And it's like, if that's your goal, that's fantastic. You and I speak the same language, right? But I think there's a lot of people in this world who are like, okay, I did it. I seen what that was like, and I'm gonna close that door now because that door opened up way too much in my life. Like I'm always reminded of every student who is large or strong, typically men, right? And at the end of a roll or something, I'm like, I bet you have control issues at home too. And
Ah!
they're just like, what are you talking about? I don't have control issues. I'm like, okay, cool. It's all good, man. I'm like, I'm the same. So I'm not calling you out on your shit. I'm just opening up your mind a little bit to a
Yeah.
possibility, right? And then, 3 or 4 months go by and they're like, you know what, man? Like my wife loves that I'm trading chits. I'm like, why is that? She's like, I'm less controlling at home now.
There's a lot of pain in that, man. There's a lot of pain and a lot of failure in both, right? And so it's how, like it. There's no failure. There's only feedback. That's how we look at it.
Love that.
That's that's where it's at.